guys, thanks for checking back with me on my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make the easiest shaker card I think I've ever made. So we're going to work on that, but I'm going to start by using scraps. I am moving and I was going through my pile of backgrounds that I have sitting around and decided today when I make this card, I'm going to use as many backgrounds as I can. So I picked a couple and I've got a new die from Lawn Fawn that we're going to use. Everything I use will be linked in the description below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like and comment if you have any questions or just want to tell me how I'm doing. So I have definitely been into rainbows lately. I see them all over social and just love them. And I found these two that coordinate. Both of these were made from a stencil from Tailored Expression. So I'll make sure to link that for you below. But I thought I could do a couple coordinating ones and we could see how far we could get with this. One thing you need is an Avery Elle large stamp and die storage pocket. That is what fits A2 cards the best, and I will show you. I tried it with many other little folded things to see what I could come up with. I tried it with some of my packaging, and I just couldn't get as snug of a fit as this Avery Elle pocket. You need this to be snug because you don't want your embellishments to fall behind the card, and you also need to make sure you're careful when you're pouring them in. So pouring them inside this snug fitting card is a little bit difficult, and you want to make sure you're going in front of the card because if you get those behind it, it's not going to lay flat, and we want to make sure that we don't do that so that it'll fit nicely on a card. I used a couple of different kinds of sequins just because I think that gives it the most interest. So I did those sparklets from Buttons Galore and More, and then I did two different mixes from Trinity Stamps that I kind of showed briefly. So I did not have any problem with some of the thicker embellishments. You do need to, when you're putting your sentiment on the card, make sure everything's out of the way when you're sticking it on just to keep everything flat, but I didn't have much trouble with that. So once you've got your everything in and it's in front of the card, then you can go ahead and cut off part of this envelope. Next, the easiest thing I found is to fold it over and use a bone folder to make your crease. Next, when you saw me cut that, you saw I cut little edges off to make it almost look like an envelope so that when it folds over, if you didn't cut your sides off at an angle like that, I think you would have trouble with it not sticking out behind it. With my crease, I'm going to line up double-sided adhesive. I don't think you could do this with anything liquid or you're going to make a huge mess out of your card. So I'm picking up some double-sided adhesive and I do one along the crease and one at the opening. And this can be a little bit tricky. I have it's going to get stuck to your fingers. You're going to have to work at it, but get it as close as you can. If there's a little extra piece like on this one, you'll see that I got it just a little bit long. I could trim that off, but I thought, why not just fold it over? It's gonna fit on there perfectly fine. Once you have the inside done, we're gonna stick that inside together so we don't lose any of our pieces, and then we're gonna get it mounted to the back. So right here, you'll see I stick these two together. You can see a little bit of that adhesive, but you're folding this to the back, so it's no big deal. I go ahead and put my double-sided adhesive right on this side too to hold it down. I still will also use, if any little flap is sticking up, I'm still going to probably use just some general masking tape or something on top of it, but this really keeps the seal closed so that you're not losing your pieces. I feel like you got to get that really good. The other thing that I did before I sealed the inside part was make sure I got all the air out. Just carefully do that so you don't have a big bubble in this card. So it's all sealed. Now it can shake, and now we can work on getting the sentiment on the front. I'm in love with this new sentiment because it's such a great die. So this is from Lawn Fawn, and I cut out two pieces of a very strong white cardstock, 120 pounds, and then I'm going to mount it to this awesome holographic cardstock. One thing that I usually do, I almost always, when I'm doing a card with a sentiment, I almost always do it in glue so that I can move it around for the placement. But this card with a clear plastic front really will show that glue if you slide it around anywhere, and it leaves it very cloudy so that you can't see through that plastic or you know exactly where there was glue. So I just went through and took my smallest roll of double-sided adhesive and did a lot of the letters just to make sure I got a good fit. Then I'm going to knock all those sequins and stars and everything down to the bottom and stick it firmly to the front of the card. So this looks great with holographic paper, and it's so easy. I already had the background, so all I needed was my sentiment and to put my shaker element together. I'm going to show you how to do this on one more card. So for the next card, I thought it would be nice to start with some ink blending in those same colors that I used through the stencil in the polka dot card. I think that this is going to look really cool. I could just do another holographic sentiment, but I thought it'd be fun to do a rainbow one that coordinates. So the other nice thing about this rainbow one is that once you cut it out of this amazing ink blended page, you're going to end up with another background. So it gives me a third card pretty easily. So I am in love with a new cardstock called Bristol Smooth, and I'll make sure I link that below. But I feel like its ink blending does such a good job. It just does not, you've got so much time to keep blending and not making fingerprints and spots. I will say when I'm doing stripes of blending like this, you want to make sure that you go over the areas where the colors meet multiple times with both the colors just to get them to fade into each other better. I will list all of these colors that I'm using at the bottom, like I said in the description. So don't worry about keeping up with that. Another tip for ink blending is to use the waffle flower media mat. It really holds on to your paper very well, and it gives you a lot of extra ink on the sides that you can gather. I feel like you use a lot less when you're using this thing, and I have just really gotten to where I cannot ink blend without it because it just makes it so much easier. So it's easy to wipe off. It holds the paper well. It's great, great mat. I'll make sure to link it for you. So we're almost done with our colors, and once we get this done, I'm going to take this panel, let it dry a little bit, because on the Bristol Smooth, I do feel like it stays a little bit wet longer, which is probably why it blends so easily, but I let it dry and then I cut it out. With this card, you see I've already cut the pouch, and now I'm about to use the bone folder to make the crease. With this one, I decided I would see if it caused me any trouble to make it with the adhesive lined up and ready before I put my materials on the inside. I felt like you're having to juggle so many things to keep those embellishments in the right place that, especially when you're messing with this flap and the adhesive, it might just be easier to go ahead and get the adhesive on it and leave its backing on. So that's what I do with this card, and it did make it a lot easier. So now we're going to add our embellishments, holding that front paper down so that these don't get behind them. These are super small, so you really want to be careful with that. You'll see me kind of messing with it and trying to make sure they stay in front of the package. These are a little bit flatter embellishments than I used on the last one, so it actually makes it a little bit easier. But you still want to be careful that you're not getting them back there and causing any problems in your card laying flat. The other thing about these easy cards is they're not very expensive. So I was worried about using my extra pouches, and I decided I'm just going to do the math and see how much each pouch really cost. And really, it's about 24, 25 cents depending on where you get them. So it doesn't cost a lot, not like adding, lights and other things that we add to cards that cost a fortune. So it's a very easy thing to do, and it really does make life easier. I'm going to show you from this die cut that I did of the happy birthday on this one with the ink blending. I'm going to show you making a regular shaker card, and we'll compare. So on this one, I did catch a shot of taping the back. So I just used some Scotch tape that I had and taped it, and that just keeps it closed a little easier. The other thing I did to this card was add glossy accents to the sentiment. I think that makes it stand out so much, and it looks awesome. So the sheet that I cut that happy birthday to you out of right here is such a pretty one that I thought, well, I'll just make a regular shaker card out of that. So I've put a piece of acetate and I've used these strips of foam tape to tape around it. And then I'm going to put some powder on the inside of them so that they're not staticky. I will have to glue together some of the pieces to the front. So this is definitely a much more time consuming and, to me, a lot easier to mess up than the other type of shaker cards. So one thing that I hate about shaker cards is if I get a single gap in that foam tape, I tend to have sequins falling out, and it just drives me crazy. So I definitely prefer the other method. So once you've got all of that pressed to a background, here's what it looks like. You still have these spots, and I kept all of my pieces from the die cut so that I can go back and make that look like it says happy birthday to you. So that's the final result there. I hope you loved these cards as much as I do, and I hope you learned something about making an easy shaker. So make sure you check out some of my other videos, subscribe, like, and tell me what you think. I appreciate it so much. Bye, guys.